Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My apologies for the delay, but I did something that some of you might consider a rarity. I prepped, and it took quite a while. So I'm going to go into some very in-depth spreadsheet analysis. I hope all my numbers are right. I think they are. And I think you all are going to really, really like this video and get a lot of value out of it. So let's dive right in. What we're going to go over is the performance of TSLY since inception, and we're going to actually determine where we would be under 5 different scenarios approximately. So let me go right into the spreadsheet and show you all where we would be. So here we go. And someone says they're sick of TSLY. Well, this might make you feel better. Okay, so I'm going to go into Google Sheets here. Just bear with me. This took me a long time to put together. Okay. So hopefully you all are excited for this. All right, so here's what we have. Hopefully I even understand what I did. So we're taking TSLY, $10,000 into TSLY under 5 different scenarios. If you had bought in at fund inception, November of 2022, which by the way, we're coming up on a year, our 1-year anniversary in TSLY. Second scenario is if you had bought in January of 2023. Third scenario is if you, like me, bought in April 2023, and I came up with the price it was at the time. Fourth scenario, if you bought in July, and then of course, fifth scenario is if you just bought in October. And spoiler alert, what you're going to notice, even at the bottom that it has hit recently, so it's lost. Here's the deal. So it started, its 52-week high was at $21.76. 52-week low was at $10.74. The difference between those two numbers, which you can see over here in cell H19, is $11.02. So at this point, it's lost more than it's currently worth. But if you subtract the total dividends that it's paid out, which are down here actually, it's paid out a cumulative sum of $7.93 in dividends. So if you subtract 793 from 1102, you're going to get 309. So that's your net amount down. Now what we're going to go through, and this is where I think this is going to provide a lot of value to you all, is if you had dollar cost averaged, where would you be? So in the first scenario, if you had bought $10,000 worth of TSLY in November of 2022, very close to the 52-week high, at a price of $20.04, you would have gotten approximately 499 shares. And I'm not sure why that didn't save the formula there. We'll do this again real quick. So yeah, you see 499, okay? Now, what you're going to notice here, this is share count in cell 19. I should have probably labeled these, but in cell 19, so if you bought in January $10,000 at a price of $13.56, you would have got 737 shares. So big difference. If you had bought in April, I'm doing this by quarter. I'm not doing this like every month. So by quarter. And this is where I bought in. Now, I didn't follow this because I would actually be in the black if I did. Spoiler alert. Let's see something here. Somebody, oh, we got a little smiley face emoji here. Not sure who that is. But anyway, I think you all are going to like this a lot. So, okay. So April 2023 was actually where I bought in. So 13.26, which is a bit lower than what I paid. But I picked around, I tried to pick fair prices at the exact dates. These could be a little off, but you'll get an approximation for sure. You'll get a very, within probably 90%, you'll get a very good idea. And then July, if you had bought in, you'd have 593 shares. Now, if you just bought in October at a low of 1093, very close to the 52-week low, and I factored out November, even though we're 18 days into the month, because we haven't gotten our information yet for November. So what I could do, I could start making a running tally of this. I'll definitely save this. I'll even title this, let's see. Since it's called Sheet 8, I'm actually going to name it right here. I'll call it TSLY DCA Analysis. All right, there we go. So this will be now one of the tabs we reference in the channel. I'll probably do an update every month. So, all right, back to this. So at 1093, you would have 915 shares. Now the next step here, when the dividend was paid out, so January, we got almost $1 in TSLY. So at a price of, or at a share count of $4.99, this would have given us $498.30. And then what we would do, saying we reinvested it, the price around mid-January was $14.46. So I took cell C20, divided by that price, and then added it to C19, which is our share count of 499. And this is the number of shares that we would have had, dollar cost averaging. So focus on the share count, right? And what I'm doing here, I'm actually testing what Jay said. Jay said something like year to date, we're actually, in terms of total return, up 38%. I didn't get percentages, but we'll get to that when we get to the bottom here. This will probably take us about 20 minutes or so to go through all of this. And I think you all are going to really find this valuable. So let me see something here really quick. Oh, good. It looks like you all are happy. That makes my day. All right, so 788.39 would be the number of shares we would have had if we added February. Now, keep in mind, you're going to notice like a tranche or like a tiered structure here, because obviously if you got in April, you wouldn't get the dividends before April, right? Same thing with July. So, okay, so 788 shares here, calculating the same way. Now, here's where you would be. Here's our first results. So if you had bought in November 2022, and what you're going to notice throughout the spreadsheet here is that there are big differences in terms of when you actually bought in. Remember, November 2022 is actually a very high point. It was our highest point. In fact, TSLY never hit $20 again ever since then. Thankfully, none of you that I've talked to, or at least none of you admit it. None of you that I know got in at this time, or maybe you just don't admit it. Anyway, so here's where you would be. With the first month in the books, you would be down about 23%. Quick math, huh? Well, that's easy because we started with 10,000. We're at 7,700. 10,000 minus 7,700 is 2,300. 23%, right? So then in the next, if you had got in at the beginning of the year, so this is where our year-to-date return would start. You would be up 14%. Wow, how'd the coach do that math so quick? Again, 10,000, you're up 11,400, 1,400, 14%, right? Okay, so then February, the dividend was 90 cents. So then 90 cents times the share price of now, and some of you can probably see why this took me so long. I'm sure there's a quicker way to do this. I'm sure I could have used a macro or something. I'm sure, the Monday morning quarterbacks in the room will surface eventually and say, oh, you could have done this and that. Anyway, neither here nor there. This took me a while. So, and I think I haven't been doing spreadsheets in a while for this channel. So that's part of the reason. Anyway, so what you'll notice here is that we took, let's see, the 90-cent dividend, right? And then we multiplied by, let me make sure there's no mistakes, by the 533, because that's our new revised share count, right? So, funny thing, when I used to go into an office 5 days a week, when I had free time, this was the kind of stuff I would do. Anyone that knew me way back then, they could say, wow, he's got a YouTube channel now. He was doing all this stuff back then. Anyway, neither here nor there, but it'll get us somewhere. Now, so for the next month, 90 cents times 788 shares, right? That's cell D21. So that gets us a dividend payout of $711.84. So big difference based on how we invested, what the time that we invested. I know they say time in the market beats timing the market, but in this case, you can see where if we timed this right, we would be way better, different scenarios. So then, let's see. So then we've got same thing here again. So C23, that was our share price divided by, or excuse me, make sure I confuse myself here. C23, which is the 481. So we're taking the 481, we're dividing it by the price of 1747, which this was the price that it was around mid-February, right? And then we're adding cell C21 because that was our last month's share count. So the share count is increasing because we're dollar cost averaging, right? So now we're at 561 shares. Same thing again, remember, because so January, we're getting the dividend here because we're in these two columns. So then we jump up to 829. Now, from here on, I'm not going to go through all the intricacies of what I did because I think I've established it now. And for those that watch the replay, just watch the start of it again if you get confused. So then here's where we are with 2 months in the books now. And keep in mind, so there was no December dividend. We only got dividends starting in January. So that's why it starts in January. So with 2 months in the books, we're only down at this point about $200 roughly, and our original investment buying from November 2022. Now, big difference if we had bought in January. So by February, because the share price was up to $17.47, we're now up to $14,485. And this is around the time that YieldMax started going viral on YouTube. I went back in my video history because I was wondering when this lightning bolt hit me, and it was around late March. And I think I talked about it later, but what I was doing back in February, I was just covering funds that you all were telling me about. So like I say, coaching is a two-way street. Sometimes you all coach me. A lot of times I coach you all, but sometimes you all coach me. So anyway, so at that point, this is when this started to gain traction because people that had invested in the beginning of the year that put 10,000, all of a sudden, based on this, in terms of total return, they're up 45%, right? So then we go to March. Then we get another 90-cent dividend. So with 3 months, we've gotten over 90 cents. Well, at or above 90 cents, right? So then our payout based on 561 shares is 506. Based on 829 shares is 748. So now, same deal. We add our new shares to the shares we had before. Now we're at 595 and then 880 almost. And then, so with 3 months in the books, now we did start to see the price of TSLY come down in March. So now we're down 12%. We're at 8809.52 if we bought in November. And then we're still up 30% at this point from our original investment at the beginning of the year in March. So still, people that bought in at this point, they're saying, okay, we're up 30%, pretty phenomenal, getting great dividends. Now we go to April. So April, we get an 82 or almost 83 cent dividend, right? Times the share count here, that's 493, 728. Now, what do you notice over here? We have a third cell. That's because up here, this is for people that just entered into TSLY in April, including yours truly. Now, I bought in around a little higher than this, actually, and I didn't follow my own example here. So needless to say, I'm actually down in the fund. So, yeah, I have skin in the game, too. Okay, so that would be $624 or almost $625 based on 754 shares if you had just bought in April. So then your share count at this point, when you do that, it increases. So then by the end of April, in scenario 1, you're at 9,500 roughly. You're at 14,000 in scenario 2. That's 40%. And then in scenario 3, you're already up 20%. And you just bought in, basically. So you're pretty happy at that point because partly you got a dividend and then we went up to 15.11. So we gained almost $2. So you're looking pretty good at this point. But it does get better, like I said, by July. So building up July. So May, we saw our lowest dividend that we've ever seen for TSLY, 44 cents. And then if we take that, now our dividend dropped to 276 here, 408, and then 350. Share count gets up to 648, 958, and 821. So now with 5 months in the books, 8,700, almost 13,000. So scenario 2, you're still looking really good. Scenario 3, you're up 10%. And then June comes along, we're back up to 80 cents. We got a $520 dividend here on 10,000, remember, our initial investment, 769 and then 659. Share count goes up to 680, 1,005, 862 roughly. Now we're starting to look really good. In all 3 scenarios, we're up. So we're up 11.5% if we bought at the peak. Then we're up 60, almost 65% in scenario 2 at the end of June. And then scenario 3, we're up 41%. And we just bought 2 months ago. And then July comes along, and then we're looking even better. So then 725, 1,000, and 918. And then there's a fourth sell because that's for those that just entered in July. Now, unfortunately, those that entered in July, they entered it from over the last 6 months, the highest point that it's been. So, all right. And then share count is here. So you can see we keep going up in our share count because we're dollar cost averaging. So at the end of July, if we could have just frozen time here, we're all happy. In all four scenarios, we're up. 25% even buying in at the all-time high in scenario 2, a whopping almost 86% in scenario B or scenario 2 from the beginning of the year, almost 60% in scenario 3 in total return. Scenario 3, keep in mind, is where I got in. So I was pretty happy at this point too. Scenario 4, we're even up 9.5%. But then, sadly, it was all downhill from there. By August, we still got a pretty good dividend, but we started seeing the price drop because Tesla had some bad earnings and Tesla started free falling. So then we got 599 here, 885, 759, 522. We're not going to keep regurgitating the math again. Share count goes up to 764, 1130, 970 almost, and then the evil number 666. And then, so at this point, we're still up in all three. Well, there's 4 now, so we're up in 3 out of 4. We're only slightly down in scenario 4 for those of us that got in July. So we're still pretty happy at 13% if we paid at the all-time highs in November. Still 67% here, still 43% here, and only down not even 140 bucks here. Can't complain there. But then September rolls along, dividend gets cut, and then, so dividends are lower, share count still increases because we're dollar cost averaging. But then we start to see the share price drop a little bit. I'm still going off of mid-September, so we were actually at 1474 here. So we're still, actually, at the end of September, we were up in all 4 scenarios still. But then October comes along. What do they say? Black October, where we get slaughtered. So then the dividend is 57, almost 58 cents. Here's our dividends that we get here. Now there's the 5th scenario for those of us that entered in October. We're getting this dividend here right off the bat. This is our share count. And then this is basically our final results at the end of the analysis here. So at the end of this, we're up in only 3 out of the 5 scenarios. Scenario 1, we've lost $1,000. Scenario 2, we're still up 34%. So that's close to what Jay said, actually. Not far off. I think he said like 35%. Scenario 3, we're up almost 15%. Scenario 4, we've gotten crushed a bit. We're down almost 2,200. Scenario 5, we're up slightly because we just got in. And then November's numbers are to be decided. So that analysis took me over an hour to do, only took me about 18 minutes to go through. But with that, I will get to all of your adoring comments now, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of them. So I hope it was worth the effort, and I hope this was very helpful. So I'm going to stop the screen share, and I'll read all the comments now. So to start off with, let's see what we've got. We've got 59 of you on. All right, not too many comments. We got Blue Sky says, big ups. Hopefully you're predicting the future. And then I teased you guys. I said this is going to be a really good one. Damon Rydell, who I haven't seen in a while, says he's sick of TSLY. MTB883 gave me a smiley emoji. Blake Downer really likes it. Need to make videos on how to hunt for yield on cost. I agree. USA Reality Check says greetings. I've been reading a lot of your comments too. I like that. Not too many comments actually. MTB883. Oh, this reminds me of the old days where you all told me all your holdings. I have TSLY, QQQY, SPYI, and OARK trying to grow a massive snowball. I already am earning $280 a month, trying to make it to $3,000 a month. So that's your goal. So $3,000 a month, would that allow you to retire? I know that's kind of what we're all looking for. Damon Rydell says, yep. And then says, last month I sold a third of my TSLY and bought Coney. Turned out to be a good decision. That actually is a good decision. Now, what I'm going to do, I may do spreadsheet analysis on all of the YieldMax funds. Actually, I think that would be a great idea. So I'll do that. I'll keep the TSLY one updated, and I'll do it on all of them over time. That'll give us a lot of video topics to talk about since you all love YieldMax. So let's see here. And then Joe here comments and says, great work. I bought in August 1st, 1684, down 29% with dividends invested. Well, that's sad. But anyway, I only did the analysis based on quarters. You can subscribe to my Patreon, and I'll sell you that spreadsheet for a low cost of $9.95 with a Black Friday discount, promo code THB. So if you want to buy that, feel free for a very cheap, very reasonable $9.95. That's $995, not $9.95. Just kidding, of course. And then look here, even Hoffman is happy. Great work, but wouldn't you consider this a yield trap? I kind of would. Kind of definitely would. So, now that I'm reading comments, you all are commenting away. Street Money 21 says, just started an account this month, 48,000 across different YieldMax funds, and got over 1,800 for the first payout. Well, good for you. Now, the elephant in the room that I didn't address is not anyone I kicked out of Discord, but it's actually hedging. So hedging TSLY, which I've alluded to, you can, of course, like Blake says here, buy puts, which is a great idea. And of course, buying into inverse ETFs, which I'm looking into doing also. So, all right, reality check hopefully has some reality checks for all of us. In your opinion, is TSLY eventually heading towards a reverse split? It could very well be. But at this point, I wish I had bought in January and just dollar cost average the dividend, because that scenario B, I'd still be up. Average is 1330 with 1,400 shares. My cost basis is down quite a bit, but I've gotten 6,500 in distributions. What about the other fund that sells daily puts that's going to be better? Which one is that? Gaknar123 says, great stuff. Thanks for the hard work. That was hard work, let me tell you. And there's so many other things I got to do too. So it's after midnight here. So thanks for, do you think the Defiance JEPY is a better choice for less downside since it follows the S&P index instead of a single stock? Well, hang on, I'll tell you just a second here. I'll use the advanced financial forecasting equipment. Let's see. Is Defiance better? It says without a doubt. So there you go. Case settled. That's how I make decisions. Just kidding a bit. What do I think about Defiance? I hope it will defy the odds. Based on the index, that's the appeal that a lot of you are getting. That's the appeal to it, is that, it's based on the index. So, but what I've noticed, the NASDAQ one, which is kind of misleadingly named. Well, no, which one? JEPY, one of them tracks the S&P, one of them tracks the NASDAQ. I think the Qs track the NASDAQ, QQQY. But it's flat while the NASDAQ is up like 1,400 points. So that's just grape juice, by the way. QQQY. Post them in the Discord. Yeah, I just might. I'm trying to only buy these high yield funds on ex-dividend day. Hurts having to wait for the dividend raise, but saves the cost basis by so much. Now, Jay actually asked us a question on the podcast channel. He said, why is there so much money coming in on the ex-dividend date? And my theory is that people think they're going to basically get a free dividend. But I think a lot of people don't realize how ex-dividend dates work. The dividend comes out of the fund, and then the fund often drops by more than what the dividend amount is. So that's tricky sometimes. And a lot of you say that, oh yeah, I'm just going to do this and get a free dividend, basically. But that doesn't always work. Damon Rydell agrees with Hoffman, feels it's a trap, makes more swing trading and sell puts. I agree with you. Does YieldMax earn more premium selling calls at 300 versus selling calls at 200? Assume both 2% out of the money and 1 week out. It might. And I told you all, because I went over the covered call example yesterday, I told you all why they're going closer to in the money or at the money. They're going like as close as possible. The limited intrinsic value, which is added to the NAV, is so small, Defiance will erode away. That's what I think too. Money in the bank likes apple juice. How is your fund doing, by the way, the Goff fund? I haven't done a video on that in a while. It was tanking. I was surprised because it survived the Great Recession and the big financial crash in 08 and 09. So I was kind of surprised. We got a haha from Gaknar123. Let me go back to this comment here, process this for a second. The limited intrinsic value, which is added to the NAV, is so small. Yeah, that's right. Joe says it's difficult to view this as an income fund when you are constantly having to put your dividends back into it every month. Even Jay admits that reinvestment is the only way to avoid erosion. Yeah, but like a lot of you were saying, it's not really a cash flow fund when you're having to do that. But at least I showed you you're still up in most of the scenarios. And keep in mind, I think that I really don't think we're going to keep dropping. I think we may get back up to 14 or 15. 18, I'll be ecstatic. But nothing's ever permanent, remember. Things always change. For better or for worse, things always change. I believe that the market is going to tank soon. I hope not. We're going into 2024 and stuff. Moving more to a cash position and then just trade options on the swings. Maybe. Anyway, well, thank you all for tuning in. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And see you all very soon. I'm going to get some more other very valuable videos out soon, so keep an eye out for those. Thank you. Take care. Have a great rest of your weekend.